Okay, let's dive right into a really cool story about a critical climate technology and, well, the computational monster that's been lurking inside it. We're going to talk about a way to make one of our most promising tools for cleaning up the atmosphere not just work, but work a whole lot smarter and faster.
So it all really boils down to this one super tough question. If you're going to build these giant machines to literally clean the sky, how on earth do you figure out their energy bill from 1 hour to the next? Because if you get that wrong, the whole idea could be way too expensive to even think about.
And that's exactly the problem. The old-school physics-based simulations for this, they're incredibly slow, unbelievably complex. Just trying to get a single answer can take hours, and that creates this massive bottleneck that just stops projects dead in their tracks. It really is an intractable monster of a problem.
All right, so let's get a proper look at the technology at the heart of our story. It's called direct air capture, or DAC for short. And as we've said, it has this massive energy monster hiding inside of it.
You can think of these DAC plants as just giant vacuums for CO2. But the catch is, these vacuums have what's called an energy penalty. That's the huge amount of power they need to actually run. And this penalty, it's not a fixed number. It changes all the time, based on things like the weather, or even the different chemical materials, the solvents, that are used inside the machine. So trying to calculate that penalty in real time, with all those moving parts, that's the monster we're here to tame.
So when you're faced with a monster that's this slow and this complicated, what do? Well, you don't fight it head-on. You get clever. You build a shortcut, a brilliant shortcut, that's 10,000 times faster, letting you just sprint right past the beast.
So instead of that slow, painstaking simulation, the researchers came up with this really elegant, three-step recipe. First, they built a virtual lab to generate a massive amount of data. Then, step 2, they used all that data to train a digital brain, a machine learning model. And the final result, in step 3, is what's called a surrogate model that gives them instant answers instead of making them wait for hours.
And let's just be really clear about the scale of this shortcut. We're not talking about a small improvement here. The new model is 10,000 times faster. That's not just a step forward. That is a complete and total game changer.
But hang on a second. With any shortcut that's this fast, you've got to ask a pretty critical question. Is it too fast? Is it just making stuff up to get the answer quickly? We need a reality check here to make sure this thing isn't cheating the laws of physics. To find out, the team set up this simple but really clever test they called a physics conformity gate. The whole idea was to see if the model had actually learned the basic rules of thermodynamics. For example, does it understand that as temperature changes, the energy needed should also change in a predictable way? It's basically a simple pass-fail exam for the model. So, the team runs the model through their new physics gate, probably expecting a pretty simple pass. But this is exactly where our story takes a dramatic twist. Because the result they got wasn't just wrong, it threatened to derail the entire project.
And here they are, the results from that first test. If you look at the table, you can see the model did great with the solvent type. A strong, positive correlation, just like physics says it should. But then, disaster. For both temperature and humidity, the correlation was incredibly weak. The model was basically saying, these don't matter that much, which we know from basic physics is completely, totally wrong. The model had failed.
So, was the model a failure? Was it time to just scrap it and start all over? Well, actually, no. And this is the crucial insight. The model wasn't wrong. The test was just too simple. Turns out, those weird results weren't a physics violation at all. They were caused by something called multivariate confounding, which is really just a fancy way of saying that multiple factors were all tangled up together, and the simple test just couldn't see them clearly. This chart right here visualizes the problem perfectly. It shows what the model was really paying attention to. And, as you can see, the solvent type was the absolute giant in the room, responsible for over 81% of the outcome. Its effect was so massive that it completely drowned out the more subtle but equally important signals coming from temperature and humidity. So the team realized, hey, we don't need to throw out our model. We just need to build a smarter gate, a more sophisticated test that could actually untangle those mixed-up signals and see the true physical picture underneath. And so they built this new 4-part gate. Instead of one simple check, it asks 4 much smarter questions. First, is the effect even in the right ballpark? Second, what happens if we look at the data inside of each solvent group one by one? Third, can we run controlled virtual experiments? And finally, are these results statistically real?
It's a much, much tougher exam.
And would you look at that? Here's the new result for temperature. This smarter gate revealed that the model had it right all along. The effect it predicted, which you can see in the right bar, was in the exact same ballpark as the expected physical effect on the left. It passed.
And it was the exact same story for humidity. Once the smarter test isolated the effect, the model's prediction was right on the money. The shortcut wasn't cheating physics after all. The first test just wasn't smart enough to see what was really going on.
Okay, so the model has passed its physics exam with flying colors, but now it was time for the final gauntlet. It had to prove that it wasn't just a good tool, but the absolute best tool for the job. The researchers put their recipe up against 13 other machine learning algorithms, and it turned out that by just swapping out one component, the original random forest model, for a new champion called Light GBM, the results got even better. It was more accurate and over 30 times faster to train. The shortcut just got a supercharger.
So what's the big payoff for all this hard work? What does it all mean? It means we can finally move from this, the old world of waiting hours and hours for a single calculation,
To this, an ultra-fast, physics-approved model that can predict the energy cost for every single hour of the day. And this isn't just some cool technical achievement, it's the key that unlocks the money. It allows these vital climate projects to actually be financed and built in the real world through carbon markets.
This whole journey is just a powerful blueprint. It shows how a clever recipe, combined with really rigorous, intelligent testing, can turn a computational monster into a practical, world-changing tool for fighting climate change. It proves the concept, and it leaves us with one really exciting question. What monster are we going to tame next?